Yeah, I think we can start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We are here with our research seminars, and I think since we are all here and ready to move on, we will start right from here without any additional introduction. So today we are going to talk about our quite a large project analysis of materials on the materials of Web of Science to explore international collaborations of Russian scientists. So today, probably this presentation will be structured in 3 parts because I have 2 co-authors here, and we split some topics to cover some research questions with research problems. So we decided to do like that. My part will somehow be this report actually I presented in September at the conference in Ljubljana. Therefore, I'm going to present that report once again with some additional comments, the extended version. And also here we have some improvements and some advancements in the project. Therefore, we would like to discuss that. The overall question that we will work today, that is about international collaborations of the Russian scientists. And in the first place, let's talk about the origin of this study. So how this study was originated, because it was not as we came up with the research question, it was that we got the data in the first place. So the origin of the study initially was data-driven. So thinking about this data-driven approach. And originally, we got a suggestion from our international collaborator, Professor Dalibor Fiala from the Czech Republic, who works in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, and he is interested in analysis of bibliographic data, and he suggested to work with analysis of collaborations of Russian scientists. Actually, he came up with the suggestion of a very large data set from Web of Science covering quite significant, extensive data for analysis. And the bibliographic data was structured was downloaded according how it was presented by Web of Science. And here we had separate files because from Web of Science, we have this opportunity to download just in small chunks. And this extensive data set covered all the necessary bibliographic data fields, actually including cited references for quite an extensive period of time, starting from disintegration of the Soviet Union and up to up to spring 2022. So that was up to May. So overall, this very huge data set accounted for 1.3 plus million publications, and we decided to call this project as Exploring International Collaborations in Web of Science, and shortly we call it WoS Russia project. Our colleague with Daria Maltseva together, Dalibor Fiala and Daria Maltseva, already conducted some descriptive analysis, did some exploratory analysis and descriptive analysis of this data set. The publication is already available, and this data set was analyzed according to different document types presented in the data set, languages used by Russian scientists. So some dynamics, some changes, growth in the area. So overall, all the publications are included, both articles and preceding papers, and it is possible even in this large data set to see how the overall evolution of publications was developing throughout the years. It was possible to see the top languages used for this data set. So here we see that definitely in the first place it is English, then we have German, and then we have publications in other languages present in this large data set. So it was possible to analyze percentage of the papers, citations per papers, and this quite comprehensive paper describe in this data set this was already available, but their scientific fields, they were split as they were presented in the data set, and it was possible to analyze general numbers for different disciplines like physics, chemistry, engineering. And we see here on the screen right now, for example, top research areas, top amount of publications presented in the data set. And definitely physics and chemistry, engineering, material sciences, mathematics, and so on are top disciplines where Russian scientists publish in their different journals, which are indexed in Web of Science. And on the left, you see very brief information about collaborating countries. So overall, the entire data set actually demonstrates that the top collaborating countries for all disciplines taken together for Russian scientists, this is United States, Germany, France, United Kingdom, and so on and so forth. So this very large data set, this was very interesting and this was quite exciting, but the question was how to work with that. So on the one hand, it is understandable that basically some previous studies were already conducted and by the laboratory as well. So you know that you need this data set, right? In the first place, you think that you know how to work with that, but when it comes up to the research questions and research problems, maybe some explorations are necessary. So overall, the relevance of this study, we would put it this way, that despite numerous critiques, we understand that there are top databases that are still considered as titans for bibliographic data, and Web of Science is one of them. So there are different studies showing, for example, benefits and disadvantages of different data sets. And right now we understand that, for example, Web of Science is not that much available for Russian researchers who want to do some bibliographic data research. But anyway, we have this data set and we decided that yes, we are going to move with that. For us, we assume that this data set can show us collaborations, international collaborations of the Russian scientists. We see this data set and Web of Science as a showcase, providing visibility for the science. And through those publications available there, we may somehow track the structure, trajectories, maybe some preferences. So what is actually visible and available in the entire Russian science for international academic and research community. So originally, we decided to think in terms of the research questions, probably assuming that this data set will allow us to disclose international dimension of Russian scientific collaborations in the first place. And also this data set may help us to study the structure of those collaborations. There are numerous actual publications on the Russian science of newly independent states, the dynamics, the trajectories, numerous studies. They can be either descriptive bibliometric studies, or there are also some new approaches as bibliometric network studies, and we decided that we are going definitely to use this approach. So overall, all the studies about Russian science, especially this international dimension, they show that there is increase in number of publications, but at the same time, the question of proportion of share of collaborations of Russian scientists in different disciplines overall and in different disciplines, it is under question. So with the methodology, we decided to work with very large extensive data set in chunks, because we had to think more about research questions and definitely research problems. So eating a whale in chunks, we decided to move with the subsets. And the original subset we started our work with, we decided to start with sociology as somehow test bed, because the laboratory already had some projects in analysis of different collaborations in sociological area, right? Collaboration of sociologists. And probably this could be the first step somehow to disclose, to provide some insights in the data and somehow to structure, to generate this algorithm for analysis of all other disciplines. So overall, a sociological data set is not that much extensive. It is rather small compared to physics and mathematics and so on. So it is around 8,000 publications. And these subsets, they were generated. So we had the entire data set starting from 1991, right, up to 2022, 30 years. And we decided to split these subsets according to SC. This is Web of Science research category. And normally every publication indexed in the Web of Science has several research categories attributed. For example, on average, this is 3-4 research categories, but there are some publications with even up to 9 categories. So we generated the subsets according to SC, this research category. And it means that if, for example, a specific research category is attributed to a publication, this publication falls within our subset. So for example, one publication, if it has several research categories, may be included in different subsets. But for this step, we decided to move just one subset. And here we are definitely sure that if this SC category, sociology, is attributed to publication, this publication, despite the type of the publication, whether it is preceding paper or journal article or a chapter whatsoever, is included in the data set. So we included everything possible in this sociological subset. We used different software tools. We used PyEC, WoS Viewer, R with bibliometrics, BibliaShiny, pre-processing was done with Python with manual corrections, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So right now, I'm going to present some results, some insights from this sociological subset, because this allows us somehow structure our further research and also to help us to think about the research problems that we faced during this stage of our research. So in terms of the research questions, research challenges, and some insight in sociological subset. So overall, definitely, quantitatively, we see that the number of publications was growing steadily. So this is quite understandable. So the first year of publications, this is 1992, and up to the last year when this data set was downloaded in 2022. But what is interesting here, that for this sociological data set, 85% of all publications published and indexed in Web of Science are done in Russian, and only 15% of those publications are done in English. So if this is the question of visibility of Russian science, here we see some numbers that help us to think some further, right, to come up to some conclusions. There are also some other languages available, but that is quite a negligible percentage, actually. But this is important, 85 versus 15%. So you have seen top disciplines as physics, mathematics on the slide with the descriptive analysis, some descriptive statistics of the data set. So we already see on this stage that the situation is different in disciplines. The second question is about completeness of bibliographic metadata for the publications. So we see that there may be some questions about cited references, but it is still acceptable. But when it comes up to keywords and keywords plus and some additional metadata information, so we see that there are up to 50% of information missing for the publications. In terms of the keywords, that is quite an interesting question, because originally we thought that this might be just due to the situation that these publications are in Russian, or maybe it could be the problem of early publications from 90s, for example, or early 2000. But we looked at some other data sets, and probably the completeness, this description of keywords overall, that is rather common problem, because definitely it is not the problem of chronological time periods. So the same situation with the most recent publications, and we had some other data sets not on Russian science only, and pretty much data description, the metadata, just brings up this question of completeness of this section with the keywords. So probably that is the common question that also should be explored. When we work with pre-processing, Lika is going to discuss that in details, but since 85% of the publications are in Russian, we face this problem of author's disambiguation, and this is quite problematic. Different options of writing the names, English pattern, French pattern, there are some complicated sounds, letters in Russian language. There are numerous ways of authors to be written, actually, including the problems with patronymic names. There are some systematic mistakes, some wrong, like misspelling of the names, but working with author's disambiguation, this is quite an important problem, because here I included a couple of examples that some like very outstanding researchers in the sociological community of Russia, their names may be written differently due to difficult letters, patronymic names, using or not using patronymic name, and it could be up to 7, 8, and in sociological data set there was, I think, up to 17 ways of one author's name to be written. Therefore, this is quite an important research question and research problem and research question to explore further. Another problem with the authors and affiliations, it was the case of commercial organizations for some reason not indexed by Web of Science. So the publications had this field, this data, but for example, if author works for a commercial organization, here we see example Yandex, for some reason this data was missing in Web of Science metadata. And the description, the affiliation, indication of the author as an independent researcher, this in Web of Science was also missing data for some specific reason. So we don't know here. Some other information. Here we see top 10 sources, documents, top journals in journals in Russian. So journals and the conferences overall, so sources of publication. And we have here two parts, sources with the list ranking in terms of number of documents published and also number of citations. So here we see 85% of publications in Russian, and in this slide, I included, I just put in orange color, I highlighted in orange color, those journals in the top list of sources for documents and for citations, which are done in English. So here we see that basically number of the documents top published are in Russian. In terms of the first part of this slide, this is very important, and position 5 and position 8, these are the conference proceedings, which were published sometime around 2016, 2015. This was actually this spillover effect of the 500 project, Проект 500 project, when everybody tried to publish whatever it was possible to publish, and majorly we witnessed quite a significant proportion of proceedings published in English. So actually, sorry, here is the mistake. In orange, these are international journals. So these are not Russian, sorry, so this is mistake. Those sources which are in Russian, they are written in Russian here. conferences, they are put here in cursive, and in orange, these are the sources, international journals. So not Russian-based journals, but international journals. So basically, we see here that Russian sociologists, they publish majorly in Russian journals, but definitely, if you have publications in international journals in English, you have, so it will be highly likely that the citations will be high for such publications. Looking at co-authorship for authors, here we have this information from Web of Science and from PAEC. We see the top list of authors, the most productive authors, but what is interesting here? So these tables are slightly different in terms of number of publications due to different software used for analysis, but this difference is not significant. But what is important here is that those Russian sociologists, they majorly work individually or in really small groups. Collaborativeness index calculated for these top authors shows that this propensity to collaborate for sociological community is not that high. From top 16 authors, I think we have only 2 authors which have collaborativeness index as 0.5. This is Galenkov and three authors, Galenkov, Puzanova, and Narbut. So just 3 authors. And the situation with actual other disciplines may be quite different. So collaborativeness index may also show us this propensity to work in collaborations. The entire field for co-authorship analysis, here we have this map actually of all authors included for 5+ publications. So the threshold, the criteria for selection to be included here in these networks is at least 5 publications, 5 and more publications. But if we analyze productivity of the researchers for quite a significant time period, so we have 30 years, 3 decades are included in the analysis. So 5 publications, is it enough or not enough? Is it good for productivity or not? So this is another question actually, right? So what we think in terms of research academic KPI, number of publications, but initially we set this threshold as 5+ publications, and we see on the left, this is the entire network, including isolates, so those authors working individually, and on the right, this is the major connected component, and here we see major authors collaborating together. But if we increase this threshold up to 15 publications, so we see how this field becomes less dense on the left. So this is number of authors left in the entire sociological network with 15+ publications, and on the right in the circles, these are 2 segments which are left if we increase the threshold for the number of the publications. For the organizations, we have 2 major organizations present in the entire network. This is Russian Academy of Sciences and High School of Economics, surprisingly or not surprisingly. For the analysis of organizations, this is also another research problem, which results in another research question, because for organizations, the situation is that we have numerous ways of organizations to be written and translated. We have numerous institutes, departments, faculties inside of organizations interpreted by the software as different institutional affiliations. So for this research, we merged actually all institutes and all campuses for Russian Academy of Sciences and High School of Economics. So we did not study the structure, the institutional structure within one organization, but this is I think, quite an interesting research question for further exploration, to look at the institutional structure of different organizations, especially if organization is not limited to one campus or just to one institute. But what we see on this map of organizations, two basic notes, right? High School of Economics and Russian Academy of Sciences, but such networks, such maps also show us some so-called rising stars. So we decided to call them rising stars, some organizations which demonstrate maybe higher, not necessarily productivity in terms number of the documents published, but in terms of being included into different within Russia collaborations. For example, such a phenomena are some Chechen institutes and research organizations. They do not have quite a lot of number of documents published, but they have a high metric for total link strength. And when you see how they are inscribed into collaboration with other organizations, this is quite a significant, I would say, insight from analysis of this map. So those rising stars, organizations which may produce publications, or they may be quite well inscribed into collaboration with other institutions. So this is interesting question. So what to do in the first place, to publish more or to publish well in collaboration with other organizations? For structure of collaborations with different countries, for sociological data set, we had 63 countries in total. If we have 5+ publications threshold set for 30 years, we have only 27 countries left. There is so-called old geography, traditional geography, with the countries of Europe, for example, the United States, and there is so-called new geography, which also probably requires further exploration. But this new geography, this is not current 2023. So this new geography resulted actually in the previous evolution by the year of 2022. So here is important remark. So this is not phenomena of the current year. So this is already something that was happening with collaborations in collaborations of Russian scientists. This picture is interesting here because for this picture we included only all the countries actually. If there was also organization from a country who published just at least one article, just at least one piece, so all the countries are included here. But what I would like here to pay attention to, that definitely there is a group of countries collaborating with Russia on this bilateral base. So this is the right part. And there is a group of countries collaborating on so-called multilateral base. So here we may assume that if you collaborate with a researcher from, say, Sweden or Poland or France or United States, it will be more likely that you will become a part of multilateral projects collaborators, or this country, organization from this country may become somehow this intermediary for enlarging, enhancing collaborations on this multilateral basis. So maybe 63 countries, not that much, with one publication set as threshold, but I think this is quite an interesting result. So here we see strict differentiation of bilateral and multilateral collaborations. So for my part, I will sum up very briefly. So this is a logical community. So the results, these insights from study of this sociology data set. Overall sociological community, we would say, is very dispersed. We may look at it with this structure core periphery, both for authors and organizations. Collaborations for sociological community are mostly done on the national level, but we may explore the overall institutional environment and track some changes. As I mentioned, for example, rising stars. For authors and organizations, to sum up, authors prefer to work individually. No, prefer is a question of preferences. They work, right? So this is a fact. They work rather individually or in small collaborative groups. Most productive authors, they still have this quite relatively little propensity to collaborate with other authors. And there are two major institutions with so-called monopoly in this publication activity in this landscape. But the question is how to explore further, and whether it is necessary, whether it is interesting to explore further maybe the structure within those organizations. For example, Russian Academy of Sciences, right? And overall, for international collaborations, definitely we see this old versus new geography. We see this differentiation for bilateral and multilateral collaborations, but quite, I would say, important point here, and this might be a limitation, so this is the language of publications. The paper may be published in Russian journal, but in English, and this is one situation, and a paper which is published in Russian journal and in Russian. So the question of visibility and accessibility to the research results of international colleagues from global academic community. And this question of overall publication activity in international journals for sociological data set, we see that it is rather limited. So how limited? Probably we will see when we finish working with some other disciplines in social economic sciences, and we will be able to compare quantitatively this limited publication number of journals. So we will get the metrics, and we will be able to compare the disciplines against each other. So probably here I'm going to stop with my part. So I think there are a couple of oh, sorry. Yes. Yes, she, her. Thank you very much. So didn't read the full last name. Right now, I think I will give the floor to my colleagues, because we decided to specify a couple of questions separately. One of the most important questions, this is about data cleaning and pre-processing. Lika will talk about that. And after that, we will also think about, talk about thematic mapping of the research. And Artem will discuss that question. So Lika, please, you're welcome. And I will just move along the slides.
Yes, thank you. My name is Lika Kapustina. I'm research assistant at the Applied Network Research Laboratory. And today we're going to talk about, in my part, we're going to talk about the data preparation processes and why do we need that. So can we go to the next slide? So first of all, the main question is why do we need data preparation at all? And the answer is simple, because without the data preparation, your data analysis results will be incorrect. As the data analysts and scientists just really like to say, trash in, trash out. So we had a lot of problems in Web of Science data. First of all, because of the different forms of name order. Here you can see the examples here in the left and in the bottom of the slide. So for example, here we have the examples where the patronymic is on the place of the last name, where the last name should be, for example, Alexandrovich, Kurakin Alexander. Also, we have the situation where the name is on the first place, for example, Alexander, Alexander, Kurakin. And also some different problems, for example, different forms and completeness of initials, as you can see here, and double accounts of some actors, as Irina said before. So, for example, we can find here the 7 accounts for Vadim Valerievich Radaev, and if we want to build some network and say something about the Radaev importance in the sociological network of science, so we can say nothing about the real Radaev importance in this network, because we have the 7 accounts for Radaev. So it's the main reason why do we need the data preparation. Let's go to the next slide. So what we did here, we have the 3 stages of data preparation. So first of all, it was some basic text preparation. We get rid of additional commas. We corrected for order of names and patronymics, and also we corrected forms of first name. So for example, we had a lot of names such as Alexander with X, with K, C, so we unified this form of names. After that, we go to the unification of names. So first of all, the order of names was chaotic, as you saw before, and also we used a few functions to unify the order of names. So the final order of names was the last name, comma, a name, and patronymic if it's presented. And on our last stage, we go to the search of similar authors based on Levenshtein distance. So we looked for the similar names to cut the number of unique authors. For example, to have not the 700 dive, but the real one. And so because the problem when you have a lot of accounts for different authors. Yes, and also, yes, thank you. And also we have a few versions of this algorithm. The old version that was created during the work on the Russian sociologist dataset. So during the work, we created basic functions to work with the word problems and word order, and also we started to use Levenshtein distance to find similar author names. And also here we have the new version in the progress. I did this during the work on Russian political scientist dataset, just right here, just right now. And also I improved the basic functions and created a new one to replace some problematic syllabus and sounds with widespread forms. So for example, we have syllabus and sounds like you, yeah, which is hard to unify in the English language when we have the English name of Russian after. Also, I changed the way with order of the naming creation of Excel table for further work and analysis, and also improved some search of similar authors with Levenshtein distance. Let's go to the next slide. And here you can see the example of data preparation on the Russian sociologist dataset. So for the Russian sociologist dataset, after all of these 3 stages, the number of unique authors fell on 16%. And also what you can see here is that, for example, we have the strings such as Irina, Pavlova, where the Pavlova is the real last name and Irina is the real first name. So, for example, I changed the order for strings like this. So Pavlova, the real last name, came to the order, to the correct order, where it should be the first, just before the comma. Also, we had the examples where we can find a lot of forms of names. For example, for Ronald Engelhardt, here you can see that we got not the 4, but the 2. Well, that's not the ideal result for our work, but we work on it. And so you can see the other examples of our data preparation. Let's go to the next slide. Also, there is still some challenges that we need to work with. So first of all, it's case forms of names. For example, Andrushinim Nikitai, in Russian, the real normal case form is Andrushin Nikita. But here we have the case form of these names. That's not the real widespread problem, but it exists. Also, we have the incorrect words of the name. For example, Chistilina, teacher Darya, whereas the teacher is not the real part of the name, but it just happened to be there. And also we have the wrong letters in the name. For example, Kuznetsova VV became the Kuznetsova with C on the place of the E, and some other problems. And we still work on it because our main goal is just to cut authors to the real number of authors and solve all the problems that can be solved automatically, not to use the manual way working with these problems. And so I can say a little about the possible future improvements. So first of all, it's more correct to work with names with widespread last names. For example, we have Ivanov, Kuznetsov, Petrov, and so on. Also, I think we should do some more accurate work with authors' names taking to account their sex or gender. And also we need to improve the search of the similar authors based on Levestein distance, or maybe use some other algorithms, for example, such as fuzzy search string. And that's all, I think.
Lika, thank you very much. So this was quite a comprehensive description of the current work, because yes, what we are trying to do, so we are trying to work iteratively. So we get the algorithm, we try to analyze how it works, and introduce some suggestions how to improve it. Since we have very large data set on such small subsets as sociology, and right now we are trying to improve the algorithm, trying to work on political science, we want to come up to some sort of product that will allow us to work with the further subsets without any problem. Right now, let's move to one more question. This is the question of building co-occurrence bibliometric networks. And I would like to give the floor to Artem. So you are welcome, Artem, to talk about this knowledge structure of scientific disciplines on the example, the case of sociology. Okay,
Yeah.
please, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Irina. Thank you, Lika, and thank you all for coming today. I'm Artem Oganyan, also a research intern at ANR-Lab, and I want to discuss some aspects of analyzing conceptual structure of Russian publications in the Web of Science. This is not really in an intellectual structure, because by that we mean, by the term intellectual structure, we mean the evolution and well, structure of how publications relate to each other, and which schools form, or some collaborations which are based on the research tradition. However, conceptual structure deals only with topics, only with conceptual substantive issues, and it is analyzed via keywords and titles, abstracts. So only the textual information, and not any data on people is analyzed here. So the next slide, please. The next slide. Yeah. So in general, what we have discovered so far in regard to mapping intellectual or conceptual map of Russian sociology is that keyword analysis is quite limited. As Irina said in the beginning, the number of keywords for approximately half of the sample or general population, you could say, is missing. But we suppose that the remaining keywords are quite useful in reconstructing the conceptual map in general. More promising approach that we mix with keyword analysis is looking at unigrams or solitary words in titles, because titles are fully present in our sample. If we move on to conceptual results, quite general results, we can say that Russia is dominating the field as an object of study, quite obviously on the one hand, but quite interesting on the other hand, because there is a lack of cross-cultural and internationally based research topics. So the main phenomena that Russian sociologists wrote about were somewhat related to education and socio-demographic aspects, and values and culture in general. These are quite popular topics. Thematic focus, if we take a look at chronological evolution of the field, tends to go from socioeconomic topics and methodology of social science, which was particularly popular in the 90s. The focus shifts towards more applied research on social well-being of special social groups. For example, youth and students are quite popular, and socioeconomic and technological development. So in general, focus from quite general theoretical works on big topics, grand theories, to applied research. This is the most general and quite pronounced trend. Please, the next slide. This is how the network of keywords looks like. This was mapped in the program WoS viewer, which is particularly suited to build networks of collaboration and co-occurrence in bibliometric networks, and it is best at working with working with Web of Science data. So in order to clean those keywords that are quite unpopular or even appear once, and in order also to cut out synonyms or some erroneous variants of wording, we restrict the number of documents in which keyword appears by a minimum of 15. This is quite an established practice and allows to see only the keywords that are actually used in general. We can say any specific things about the picture of the network. It needs to be explored further, and so please, the next slide. This is the most obvious and the most basic descriptive picture of what for 3 decades dominates the thematic field of Russian sociology. As we can see, as I have said earlier, the most prevalent topics are concerned with education, youth, while also with culture and values, which in some authors who also wrote on the development of Russian sociology also pointed out that in our theoretical reasoning, the question of values and the whole topic of values is maybe overrepresented as compared to Western sociological theorizing. So you see that inequality, the topic which is very popular in Western or international social science, is only at the top, is only at the position 10, and is not represented in regards to co-occurrences at all. So this is also an interesting result. So please go to the next slide. WoS viewer allows to conduct cluster analysis to group certain keywords that appear to be similar together, and we have done so as well. And on the slide, you can see which clusters were built after several iterations of cluster analysis. So in general, there are 5 topical spheres, so to say, that can be seen. The first one, also the most numerous, we thought that it would be proper to name it historical theoretical, because it both concerns the grand topics of classical socio-philosophical or socio-political aspects, and they are discussed at the core of the sociological discipline. But also it has, interestingly, it has such terms as Russia and China. At first, it may be quite paradoxical, but it also may be hypothesized that in recent political and public discussions in recent years, social development of China is viewed as an alternative for Russia. So the scientific and also the scientific cooperation between Russian and Chinese authors was recognized by us and by means of publication analysis. So it may be that Russia and China are discussed here in terms of their historiosophic and general political philosophical similarities. The next cluster is reserved to socio-demographic questions, which are at the heart of Russian and general international sociology, such terms as age, children, health, family, inequality, justice, etc. So it is interesting that the co-presence of both purely demographic concepts and concepts from the vocabulary of political science and sociology suggests that Russian sociologists are not interested only in monitoring the socio-demographic situation, but also in national social policy. It is also interesting to note that this cluster has the word Europe in it. It can be assumed that this is a reflection of comparison of socio-demographic situation and policies between our country and Europe. So Europe may serve as a primary example of comparison of socio-demographic policy between us and other international countries. The next cluster, we thought to name it social technology. It is quite a popular word in the Russian context, meaning technocrat. These topics are involved in creating social technologies, so to say, to manage large flows and gatherings of people, of masses, and also they are concerned with transforming the development of those populations. Socioeconomic cluster is particularly devoted to the economically sociological and social stratification issues. And the digital society cluster is involved in discussing, digital society as it appears here as well. And it is, it can be thought of as examining the social consequences of new technologies, particularly digital technologies, social media, etc. Please, the next slide. However, it is not only interesting to look at how themes are structured in general. It is also interesting to look at how the thematic outlook was came to be as it is today. In this picture, we can see the trending titles for each year since 1992 to 2022. The picture is not great, so you may not be able to see everything, but in general you could observe the same trend as was discussed in the general summary. The movement from big socio-economic, political, theoretical questions to more applied and concise topics of inner politics and socio-economic development, and later, well, it was the movement was to the issues of technology and COVID, obviously. So the next slide, please. This is the overall thematic evolution. It is based on cluster titles. So titles, unigrams of titles are clustered together using an algorithm, particularly fast greedy algorithm that is implemented in BiblioShiny program. And here you can see how publications with similar titles moved from one cluster to another. As you can see, from 1992 to 2007, the main issues discussed were political, but also social, centered around Russia and life. This word is related to socio-demographic situation. In the next period, with proliferation of economic development of Russia and its movement towards global sphere, the issue of life, the issue of life questions, social policy, transformation of living standards, etc., became dominant, as well as examining global transnational issues. Social topics also were present, but in the next years we can see a rise in exploration of all topics related to Russia. It was the main one of the sources of this was from discussing global issues, and we can also see that in the next and final period, the discussion primarily moved towards Russian issues. This image, however, it may not be as informative as the next pictures. Please, the next slide. This is the decomposition of this thematic evolution in terms of how each topic and associated with that, titles associated with that, how exactly are they living in the current scientific landscape. So in order to do this, there is an approach implemented by proposed by colleagues in the article, which you can see in the bottom of the slide, and this approach is implemented in BiblioShiny. In general, this approach tells us that we can measure how certain topic is connected with other topics. This is what's known as centrality, and it is along the x-axis. And we can also see how the topic is, how the keywords in a topic are connected within this topic. This means that this is referred to as density, and this is the y-axis. So we can see that those topics which have both high density, in other words, they are highly developed internally and also have numerous links to other topics. These are the motor themes most popular at the moment, and also quite researched. Basic themes in the lower right quadrant are not so developed because it is thought that the development has finished, but they have a lot of links to other topics, which means that they are fundamental. Lower left quadrant has topics which are either emerging or declining because they have both low links to other topics and low connectivity within them. And niche themes are quite representative of their naming. They have a lot of internal connections, but are not well connected externally. So as you can see, in the first period of our analysis, the most popular topics were devoted to sociological examination of social demographic issues, and also the current, to that moment, economic situation. Political issues and management were at the periphery almost of the scientific sphere. The next period saw the rise, saw that the topics of youth, education, culture became basic, as you can see there in the left-right quadrant, but also global aspects devoted to globalization, etc. They also came to the scene, but they were quite niche. The next slide, please. From 2014 to 2018, we can see that development and questions devoted to development, in international development, they became basic, and Russian sociological community came to study contemporary political processes and also youth. Finally, if we take a look at 2019-2020 period, we can see that the topics of practices, COVID, and interactions, in other words, some qualitative topics came to the scene, and examination of Russian context, and especially urban sociology, became one of the motor themes, which is quite interesting. In general, the analysis of conceptual structure needs to be done further, because this is only a descriptive picture. Maybe the next step would be to statistically identify which publication characteristics may explain the lack of keywords, which are the most useful and proper instrument of conceptual analysis. We hope to do that in our future works. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Artem, very much. I think that I will just sum up in a couple of words. So here we have seen some exploration of sociological field. So definitely we have some limitations. We are working on the basis of very specific data sets. So that is just the publications of Russian sociologists, which are included in those journals which were indexed in a Web of Science database. Now we have this cutoff period as just spring of 2022. So probably for this conceptual analysis of scientific mapping of the field, probably this last time period should be explored in more details. But what we definitely got from all this analysis, this is the understanding how to approach this data set, how to work with different disciplines, which research questions have to be conceptualized probably and explored in more details. The primary objective at this stage of analysis, this is still to finish this algorithm for authors disambiguation, because probably this is one of the most important research problem on this stage. And we will do the same. So we are also on the way to do that with organizations. After we sum up all that, we will proceed with other subsets. So right now we are working with 3 disciplines: sociology, political sciences, and economics. And that is probably the presentation just of the some segments in the research field of all Russian scientists. And we approach discipline by discipline, but the ultimate goal, that is also to apply some methodology to analyze, to apply social network analysis methodology to all disciplines taken together. So we have some reference studies for us, but to proceed to that step, we have to manage those small issues on the one side, but definitely in terms of amount of work and effort put into the project, they're not that small actually. So probably here, yes, I will stop. That is all we wanted to talk about today. So for the sociological analysis, we have already we have sent for the revision to Sociology for M journal. So the sociological analysis will be already published. We will finish working with political science and economics, and probably after that we will be able to move to the general picture of all disciplines to study collaborations of Russian scientists. So dear all, thank you very much. I think that is it. It is exactly as we planned. I think we may stop here. So if you have questions, please, you're welcome. If we do not have questions, then I would like to thank everyone for being here today with us. And please join us with our next further research seminars, our other upcoming seminars. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.